Welcome. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this is our daily Bible study program, specifically tailored to scriptural wisdom for life. Let's begin. We talked about on yesterday the scripture from Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. We're going to be focusing on the first part of this scripture, and be not conformed to this world. And yesterday we considered and we thought about the terminology for conformity, and here we found that the word was suskomitizo, and it deals with the fashioning or formation of something, and it comes from the word sun, which means to join together in unity, and then from the other Greek word, Koine Greek word, which was the word schema, and schema was, again, a figure, and it literally reveals a schematic, a figure or a mode or circumstance, external conditions. And so when we speak of this, we're speaking of then the patternization of a life, the patternization of the essential essence of who and what the individual is, as far as coming to understand that this adaptation of a pattern of behavior, thought processes, a pattern of even how we design our decorum, our physical decorum, our homes, even our businesses, that this decorum should not be something that we are intimately connected with or intimately embracing. And so nonconformity then deals with the non-patternization of a system, the non-patternization of what we would call values, worldviews. And so it deals with the adaptation of a philosophy. And this philosophy then, of course, would be something that is materialistic. And we're not saying that people don't have the right to choose, because we are not their creators. Neither are we the judge and jury. And so each individual, even the scripture says, choose ye this day who you would serve. But I also feel that it's counterproductive to cause other individuals who do choose to adhere to scriptural values to be demonized or ostracized. This is what I mean by we're coming to a point where systemic values are beginning to clash. And in these systemic values, as the clashing takes place, one of two things are going to happen. Both will collide, and both will become antagonistic to the point where each seeks to assert its will, its values, and its patterns for living upon one another, or each will begin to permit the other to come to a point of operating, living, and expressing who and what they have desired to cling to. I have to put a segmental warning in here. Those who share the gospel must remember that we are to share it. We cannot force people to accept something that they have no inclination or desire to accept. And so the gospel is to be shared. The faith is to be shared. and not to be forced. And so we then, who have come to a specific understanding of who Christ is and what life is all about, the scriptures tell us that in coming to this understanding, we have to be very careful as to how we comply to specific things that take away biblical principles and biblical rights and the rights as a citizen of this country to express what you feel and what you have adhered to and what your belief systems are. This is one of the foundations of what this country was all about, even though there are many things that might undermine these connections and these things. And so when we begin to understand that conformity is something that's very, very specialized, and it's very, very contingent upon what we do and what we say, as well as what we believe. And so conformity, again, as we look at it, and we're going to go through it in a much greater capacity at this time. And so not only does it mean to conform to or fashion oneself according to, it also deals with the conformity of oneself, that is the mind and the character, to another's pattern. And so it's almost as if this conformity is becoming a disciple. Remember the term disciplinus, or the word mathetuo, as a disciple that we find in Matthew chapter 28, verse 18 through 20. This term, mathetuo, or mathetes, it deals with, first of all, enrolling oneself to be trained and being received for the purpose of being trained. But it also deals with disciplining to become a disciple. A disciple is one who adheres to a belief system or the teachings of another, but not just simply adhering to it, but a disciple makes their doctrine their own. They embrace it, and they embrace it for the purpose of now allowing it to become integrated into their mind, integrated into their heart, and integrated into everyday living. And so what Paul is basically saying here is that the conformity to the wisdom, the philosophy of the age is almost as if one is becoming a disciple of the age, a disciple of all of the attitudes, all of the philosophies, all of the belief systems, or all of the, as William Dilthey would say, all of the various mindsets that compose what we call a worldview, a philosophical look on reality, a philosophical look on the meaning of life and the clarity of what creation is. Because the very foundational adherences to a philosophy concerning all ontological reality. And when we speak of ontological reality, we're talking about all of existence. How you determine the beginning of all things will determine how you will behave, how you will live, and the value systems that you have. And so it's very important, again, when we talk about suskometizo, this conformity is very important because it also talks about fashioning alike, or the conformity to an outward pattern. It means to be conformed to or molded within the fashions, within the values, within the accoutrements, specifically the external accoutrements. And so he says that we have to stop being molded by external and fleeting fashions of the age. Fashions are not simply dress fashions, but fashions can also adhere to behavior. You know, some people say it's fashionable to believe this, or to eat this, or to go here, or to drink this. And so what Paul is saying is that we have to realize that we have now joined a kingdom that is not of this world. And I'm not talking about us being aligned with some extraterrestrials and we are now partners trying to take over the world, because that is a part of the schema in this age, the belief in UFOs, and that these UFO saviors will come to help mankind to go through the hurdles and all of the things that will be coming upon us because of our own making. So when we look at it, suskamatidzo, he's talking about there must be a change in our lives. There must be a change in how we approach living, how we approach one another, how we see God, how we see reality. And so he says, and be not conformed to this age, this time period that is filled with many different aspects of philosophy, many different versions of truth, many different versions of ethical behavior, ethical values, and many of the other things that are interlocked within the world today as we know it. I'm your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this has been our daily Bible study, specifically dealing with scriptural wisdom for life. And until tomorrow, God bless.